Yeah. This is the day. This is the day that you are me and I am you. Today. Right now. Got it?
Got it.
Yes. Look to your neighbor and say, you are me.
You are me. You are me.
Say, I am you.
I am you.
Yes. Feel that. Be that. This is what oneness is about. This is why we are here. You know, there are many beautiful lyrics in that song, and it's not to be just dismissed as the popping of the fingers, because if you can listen to the lyrics of that song, then you can understand oneness on a level that is important. But have no fear, I will assist you. Until the rainbow burns the stars out of the sky, always. You know, the song starts talking about the sun knows to go, the sun knows to do what it does too, but the earth knows to go around the sun. And the rosebuds know to bloom in early May. Well, they tried. They made an attempt. I was looking at Virginia's rose bushes yesterday. They were making an attempt, and they said, whoop, okay. The universe is not in sync with being ready for my beauty right now, so let me pause. And so the universe is waiting for us all to warm up to it so that everything that is beautiful can make itself known and reveal itself abundantly and proudly, strongly and boldly. This is a mother's love. This is the theme that we've been talking about all month long. This is the cosmic mother's love. This is the love that is innate in each one of us. In the first week, Stephanie Wilson Coleman was calling the secret to greatness and saying that it came from the mother. And so I'm inviting you right now to think about, what did your mother teach you? You know what it is. And when you need to know what you really know. In the second week, I said that God's gift of grace was another word for a mother's love. And so I'm asking you, who has shown you compassion this week? Think about it. In the third week, Reverend Chiquita said, nurtured by truth is a way to know a mother's love. And I ask you, what did you come to realize as a result of living life this week? Today, I speak to you from a way out of no way. I was in my front yard this week as we are moving into spring and clearing away all of the debris from everything that has accumulated around our beingness throughout this winter season, while the earth has been moistened by all of the abundant rain and abundant snow and all of the ingredients that are in the soil of the earth have been stirred and activated. It's like a meal that's been cooking that you're ready to eat. If you grow a garden that has food in it, you might even be partaking in those nutrients right now. But what I know is that in this process, I came to discover a motherly kind of a feeling as I was planting these flowers around my light pole. And in this process, I was learning that every kind of debris needed to be removed so that nothing would get in the way of this beautiful life energy being able to bloom and to absolutely open to its fullest. And I planted some others by the front fence, and I was tired after the different work that I had been doing that day, and I went to sleep, and then that night there was quite a violent storm. You heard it. You heard the wind. You felt the windows shaking. You heard the thunder, and you felt that vibration that was absolutely coming down on this plane. Well, I was concerned about those flowers that I had planted. I was concerned at whether or not they had enough of a proper foundation to be able to sustain this kind of violent energy, this kind of dramatic fury. And I couldn't wait until the morning to look out the window and to later go out to sea. And then they were standing proudly, standing strong, and absolutely anchored in the truth of who they are. This is an analogy of what has happened to you and through you. You have been planted here in this earth as an expression of God in which it has much love and for which it has much care. You are this beautiful possibility that is blooming at the moment's notice of any opportunity to know that you are anchored in truth and absolutely nurtured by the sun. And so you have all of these wonderful ingredients in you that are pumping into your veins. You can call it blood, it's joy, it's absolutely percolating, and the divine breath that is breathing you is absolutely supporting you in being fully present to this experience. Here's a question for you. What do you believe in so wholeheartedly that you would make your life a means by which it could be realized? I'm going to say that again. What do you believe in so wholeheartedly that you would use your life to see its fulfillment? This is very important because this is why you are here. It may have shifted from another time, but it is still something that is magnificent, that is in your DNA, that is calling for you to be that. You may think of it as your mother's genes that want to be revealed through you. You may think of it as a means by which God is happening as you. Did anybody watch 60 Minutes last Sunday? I know you did because I watched it with you. One of the segments was about Camp 14. It's in North Korea. It's a camp where they take people and they work them. They don't have to have committed any crime. In fact, most of them haven't. They are fed very little. They are worked to the bone. And any sense of family is discouraged. Men and women come together to mate only on occasion after working very, very, very hard. And there was one such boy who was born in this camp. And this boy would grow really, really, really tired of the food because it was really a pittance what they were being fed. It was really nothing that would sustain them, that could even help them to be able to do the work that they were doing, but that was what they had, so that was what they lived on. And the boy thought this was a normal way to live, but then there was something within him that wanted more. And he thought that it was normal for him to turn in his mother and brother, saying that they were trying to escape, even though they weren't. But he told the authorities that they were going to escape and that they were planning this escape. And so they executed the boy's mother and brother. They executed people regularly. This is still going on today. And so they executed his mother and brother, and he saw that, and he didn't have any particular feeling about it because there was no sense of nurturing family. There was no sense of really being connected to these people. He thought that perhaps if he would get some points for maybe telling on them, then maybe he would get some more food. That's how basic and very devoid of life energy that he was. Well, he later went to escape, and he succeeded in getting out of the camp. And really in a remote part of North Korea, and he somehow made it out. And then, as he found out what family structures look like, and he saw other people in family, he began to think about his mother and brother. He began to think about what he had done, and he had begun to think about the people that he left in that camp, and he wanted to help spread the word that there were people who were being imprisoned in this way that needed help. Because at the very essence of his being is compassion. At the very essence of all of our beings is compassion. And so this segment was absolutely revealing the kind of inhumane treatment that we do with one another. And so I thought that it was interesting that he came to know connection with people eventually, even though he was never raised with it. There was still something within him that had it. There was also a segment about Michael Jackson on that 60 Minutes. And, you know, he was a phenomenal talent. And he had a gentle spirit. I worked on one of his videos, and he was just a very tender being. And to be in his presence, you could feel that. But the appearance was that he died broke, that he died in debt, from an addiction in a state of disconnect from his family. The truth is that he left his family a fortune that has already begun to substantially eliminate his debt so that they may know wealth and that they now have an opportunity to learn some of the messages in his songs. Michael was a deep spirit who understood life in a way that this particular level of understanding that many are vibrating on could not grasp, but they could grasp the beat. And so the beat was enough to get them to listen to the song. But Michael left us messages in his songs. And we have an opportunity to learn some of the messages in his songs as well. We don't really mourn the loss of the personality. We mourn the loss of the spirit that moved us. Oklahoma tornado. We have the opportunity to choose to be the face of God once again. Apparently, we seem to have no problem remembering that we are one when fear is involved. We start to think about, oh, that could have happened to me. And all of a sudden, we become concerned about our neighbors in Oklahoma. When we begin to think about that possibility, we get in touch with our compassion. And then we forget again. In one of the schools, 7 children were killed. If they had a safe room is like a place where they can go when a tornado is occurring, those children might be alive today. They said, well, a safe room costs $1 million. We spend $1 million on the construction of a war weapon every day. "24 people were killed in Oklahoma, hundreds were hospitalized. The devastation of the property, they say, is greater than the tornado they had in, I think it was May of 1999, although more lives were lost in 1999. Now these people know that tornadoes are a way of life there. There were graduations for 3 of the schools yesterday in Oklahoma. Now, what if part of the military budget went to giving the states dollars to be allocated to the infrastructure? And maybe then the soldiers become the people who truly enforce that the dollars are going where they've been allocated. Maybe the soldiers are the ones who are making sure that when the government sends $100 million to Oklahoma for safe rooms, that the money is being used for just that. Maybe the soldiers are for making sure that $100 million goes to Louisiana for the levees, and maybe the soldiers are there to make sure that $100 million is going to Seattle for bridges. A bridge went down in Seattle this week. I was very concerned because I have a number of friends in Washington State, many ministers and other friends, and I was concerned about that, but no one was killed. But then another bridge went down in Missouri just the next day. And this is the infrastructure in which we are living. So what if those same soldiers were here to make sure that $867 million came to Chicago to take care of our schools? What if that was happening? What if we were the ones to make sure that it happened? What if we were the ones to say, this must happen? What if we were the ones to know that I am you and you are me? What if we were the children who wanted to have an education? What if we were the teachers who wanted to be the people who were facilitating these children having a place to learn? What if we wanted to be a part of this next generation coming into the full expression of who they are? What if we were the ones who said that it was necessary and absolutely mandatory that this happen? Why isn't it us? Why can't it be us? I say that it is us. How can our children know compassion if our government is not showing it to them? The Chicago Board of Education voted on Wednesday to close 50 schools, including about 10% of all elementary schools, in the largest mass closing of schools in the nation. In the nation. In mainly Hispanic and African American neighborhoods where there is great gang of violence, in a city that recorded 506 murders in 2002. The other week they were saying there were 18 deaths from shootings that weekend, last weekend. And if there had been 8 casualties in Afghanistan, that would have been a news item. See, there have been so much that there have been many choices that have been made out of fear. In Seattle, I want you to know that the bridge that went down was part of the 5 interstate. I know the 5 intimately because it goes from Mexico all over to Canada. It is basically the main highway along the West Coast. So anytime you go up and down in the state of California, you're going to have to use the 5. But that was part of the infrastructure of our nation, literally from the southernmost tip to the northernmost tip of our country. I want to talk to you about infrastructure. It's a basic physical and organizational structure needed for the operation of a society, or the services and facilities necessary for an economy to function. Okay? It refers to technical structures such as roads, bridges, water supply, sewers, telecommunications, and so forth. And functionally, it's about products and services being distributed, including social services, such as schools, such as hospitals, such as roads that enable us to transport raw materials. Now, Let's talk about 3.2 to $4 trillion. That's the recent report on what we spent in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Now, I couldn't wrap my head around 1 trillion. And I know it's just a word to many of us, but I decided to be with that. I decided to be with trillion. Okay, so let's be with trillion for just a moment. There are 1 million millions in a trillion. There are 1,000 thousands in 1 million. We basically deal with thousands, right? Okay, so there are 1,000 millions in 1 billion. And then there are 1,000 billions in a trillion. Okay? You like math, Tyler? Okay. Now, 1 billion thousands make up a trillion. Okay, so you might get a check for 1,000. So if you can imagine 1 billion thousands, that would be a trillion. Let me break it down into time. God doesn't have anything to do with time and space, but I'm just talking about what we're dealing with on this earth realm right here, right? 1 million seconds will pass in 12 days. 1 billion seconds will take 32 years. 1 trillion seconds will pass in 31,688 years. You can't live for 1 trillion years. But we spent $6 trillion on war. Who are you electing that will spend more on destruction than you could ever see in 422 lifetimes? Time is money, right? So if you made $1 every second, you would have $1 million in 12 days. So $1 a second would mean that you make $60 a minute. And then you make like $3,600 an hour, right? Am I right, Tom? So what could you do that would be worth $3,600 an hour? What could you do that would be worth $3,600 an hour? Now, before you go into your lack and I'm not worthy and I'm not enough and all of that blah, 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 BS, which is a belief system, before you go into all of that, I'm going to give you some other things to think about. Some of you think of Jesus as a prophet. What he was spirit and man, as we all are. Now, what were the occupations that people had back in that time? There were farmers, there were herders, there were carpenters, there were stonemasons, there were hotel owners, there were seamstresses, there were fishermen, craft workers, servants, slaves, soldiers, boat workers, people who swept the streets, blacksmiths, well diggers, dancers, musicians, paid mourners at funerals, just to name a few. But the main jobs were farmers, herders, and servants. Now, Jesus talked to the people in parables back in that day, and I love how he explained why. He said, though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear. So that's why he spoke in parables. So one of the parables in Matthew was a farmer went out to sow his seed. He was scattering the seed, and some fell on the path, and the birds came and ate it up, and some fell on the rocky places where it didn't have much soil and it sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. And another seed fell on the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still another seed fell on good soil where it produced a crop 160 or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let him hear. The women in Liberia were watching mayhem in the streets. Killing was going on in their front yards. Soldiers were coming in and taking their female daughters and doing things that were devastating. They were robbing the people of their homes. They were taking all of their physical possessions. They were taking over the people's houses. They were shooting people in the streets. They were shooting them down in cold blood. And this was happening as a matter of policy. This is where the president was dictating that this happened so that he was creating a sense of terrorism throughout this entire country. He was creating this sense of fear, and that everyone was trying to leave to get away from there, and they went to these camps. And in the camps, they started saying that they were going to attack the camps and the people were not going to have anywhere to go. And the women were very distraught about this. And the women said, this must stop. And one woman had a dream. And she said, this must stop. And I see all the women coming together praying. And I see all of the women coming together uniting. And I see all the women stopping this war. And this went on. And this is a film that we'll see, and we'll probably see at your spiritual center. Dawn knows this film. And these women sat and they prayed and they danced and they held one another and they danced with one another and they absolutely held the truth about it. And they stood in front of the president and they asked for him to consider going into a peace meeting, because these women had been really blocking the streets and really they didn't want to kill the women, and the women were really making their presence so much known that he had to finally agree to do so. And then they went to another country to have these peace talks, and they decided that they would just use this as an opportunity for them to have a good time. They were running up the hotel bills and they really weren't discussing peace at all. They were just doing what they do in another environment. Until the women realized that this isn't working, and they decided to circle, and there were enough of them that circled the entire space, and they said, you will not come out until you have discovered peace, until you have come to an agreement, we will not let you out. And this went on for days, and then finally they said, women, please leave, we have to have you leave, because the men, they're jumping out of the windows, you have to leave. And they said, we will leave only on the condition that they are able to come to peace within 2 weeks. If not, we will be back. And in the process of this whole revolution that came from love, there was never any violence, there was never any disturbance coming from the women. There was only a conviction and a determination. And there was a peace treaty that came to be made eventually, and there were elections that came to be made, and the president went into exile, and the people elected a woman president for the first time in history. And if you think that you are powerless, if you think that you do not have the capacity to make the kind of change that is so very necessary, not simply across the world, although they are us and we are them, not simply across the country, although they are us and we are them, in your own city, are you willing and able to stand in truth, to absolutely anchor yourself in prayer? It would certainly be worth way more than $3,600 an hour if you could give your life to such a thing that you believe in so vehemently, that you are willing to dedicate your life as an expression of doing that. There was a little girl who stood near a small church from which she had been turned away because it was too crowded. And so the pastor was passing by and she said, I can't go to Sunday school, as he walked by. And She said, because it's too crowded. And he said, seeing her shabbily dressed, unkempt appearance, he guessed what the reason was, and he took her by the hand and he took her inside and found a place for her in Sunday school. How many of our children try to get out of going to Sunday school? The child was so happy that they had found a room for her. So she went to bed that night thinking of the children who have no place to worship. And some 2 years later, this child lay dead in an abandoned building, a poor tenement building. Her parents called for the pastor to come, who had befriended her to handle the final arrangements. And as her poor little body was being moved, a worn and crumpled red purse was found, which seemed to have to rummage through some trash dump. And inside of it was 57 cents and a note scribed in childish handwriting, which read, "This is to help the little church build a bigger church so that more children can go to Sunday school." For 2 years, she had been saving up this offering of love. When the pastor read that note, he knew instantly what he would do. He took this note in a cracked red pocketbook to the pulpit, and he told the story of her unselfish love and devotion. And he challenged his deacons to get busy and raise enough money for a larger building. Now, it doesn't end there. A newspaper learned of the story and published it. It was read by a wealthy realtor who offered them a parcel of land worth many thousands. When told that the church couldn't pay so much, he offered to sell it to the little church for 57 cents. Church members made large donations. Checks came from far and wide. Within 5 years, the little girl's gift had increased to $250,000, a huge sum for that time. That was near the turn of the century. Her unselfish love paid large dividends. When you were in the city of Philadelphia, look up the Temple Baptist Church with a seating capacity of 3,300. And be sure to visit Temple University, where thousands of students are educated. Have a look too at the Good Samaritan Hospital and the Sunday school building, which houses hundreds of beautiful children. It's been built so that no child in the area would ever need to be left outside during the Sunday school service. In one of the rooms of this building, may be seen a picture of the sweet face of a little girl whose 57 cents, so sacrificially saved, made such remarkable history. If God could do that for 57 cents, think about all of your precious gifts that lie within you. Think about all your talents, your intelligence. Yeah, you can think about your degree or degrees, but you can think about your heart. You can think about that place that has felt these stories, because the very thing that was in them is in you. It's a mother's love. We all have it. Whether or not we've given birth, whether we've adopted a child, whatever our experience has been, we have the stuff of which change is made. We have the stuff of love. It is our cosmic DNA. We must use it so that we can eliminate any of the trillions of things that are done on a daily basis to enhance fear. It is a cosmic love that is not beyond our capacity to understand. It is a cosmic love that is built into the interior frame of who we are. I invite you to embrace it, to choose to put your energy into what you believe in, to choose to put your time into what you believe in, to choose to put your talent into what you believe in, to choose to put your treasure into what you believe in. It may be the Oneness Spiritual Center. It may be something else. But whatever it is, know that your Creator, your cosmic mother, is looking at you, not with judgment, but with unconditional love, simply waiting for you to wake up to who you truly are. Please do so now. Namaste.
Namaste.